Welcome back, everybody. This is week 4, lecture 4, module 4 of strategic management, and we're going to look this week at business level strategy. The lecture is divided into 3 parts, and there are some videos to watch between each part of the lecture that are case examples of the type of theory and practice that we've been talking about. One of them is an introductory video as well. So, what we're going to do this week, in the first part, we're going to define business level strategy and discuss the relationship between customers and business level strategy. In the second part, we're going to discuss the differences among business level strategies, use the 5 forces model of competition to explain how above average returns can be earned through each business level strategy, and describe the risks of using each of those business level strategies. Now, objective 3, 4, and 5 are being done together, and there's sort of in the stepped, staged way, because I'm going to talk about each of the business level strategies, and then I'm going to talk about the 5 forces of competition, how you implement them, the 5 forces of competition, and the risks of each business level strategy. Okay, so let's get going. What is business level strategy? We've already defined strategy as an integrated and coordinated set of commitments and actions designed to exploit core competencies and gain competitive advantage. That's our working definition of strategy. Business level strategy is an integrated set and coordinated set of commitments and actions designed to gain a competitive advantage by exploiting core competencies in specific individual product markets. Now let's just extend that slightly to say that in an organization you may have a corporation that may have multiple businesses, and those businesses may be product markets. For example, Coles has their liquor product, their online offerings, their domestic and their supermarket offerings. They're 3 different sets of businesses within that corporation. Business level strategy could apply to them. Qantas and Jetstar are different businesses within the same corporation with different business level strategies. So let's look at the relationship between business level strategies and the customers that they serve. There are 3 key issues that you need to address in business level strategy. Which good or service should you be offering the customers? How do you manufacture and create that good or service? And how do you distribute that good or service? So let's look at each of those. In customer related issues, we have to ask, who are we serving? What needs do the target markets have? And how are those needs going to be satisfied? So broadly, we're looking at the relationship with customers and how we strengthen that relationship by offering superior value. We talked last week about how you use your core competencies to create superior value. Superior value is perceived by the customer and enhances your competitive advantage of your business over other companies' businesses. So where does superior value come from? It comes from the firm's access and connection to customers, the richness, the depth of information that flows between the firm and the customer and the firm. That's why, for example, Woolworths has their loyalty cards, their rewards card, so that they know you swipe your card in, they know who's bought what and when. And then you're also getting then targeted with information about the products and services that Woolworths are offering that are targeted to you. And affiliation, the facilitation of useful interactions with customers. That means you might feel like you identify with the organization. Frequent flyer programs in airlines are one way to increase affiliation. Companies usually or frequently, when they talk about which customers are they going to serve, think about them in terms of consumer markets and industrial markets. Consumer markets where you're serving directly to the end user. Industrial markets are where you're providing services that's going to be processed or goods and services that are going to be processed in by somebody else before they go to the final end user. To decide who you're servicing, you use market segmentation, and there are two types of market segmentation in the model we're presenting. And I note that in your textbook there is a significant coverage of the nature of customer segmentation. We're only dealing with it briefly, and the focus of today is actually on business level strategy. It's not focused as much on these issues of market segmentation, but you need to know them just as background. So customers can be segmented by their perceptions, how they feel about themselves or the product. Branding affects that. Demographic, age, gender, income. Consumption, how they like to consume, how they access the product. Social economic issues, income, disposable income, wealth, stage of economic life. Psychological and geographic. So there are ways that we can break up consumer markets. And even though those consumers may be using a similar product, for example, they may deal with those products differently. They may feel differently about those products. We sometimes see this car markets where they market to multiple generations, where a car like the Mitsubishi Honda Jazz is seen as an entry level fun car for new drivers, but it's also seen as a car that, it's low cost and reliable for retirees. So you can have different perceptions and different ways of consuming and different relationships to different vehicles or different products and different services, in that case, different vehicles. Industrial markets are about the end user segment, which you can classify a segment by industry code, or they're about product segments, technological difference or production economies, or the nature of the product or the nature of its use. Geographic boundaries within countries, different regions. Common buying segments, which can cut across product, market and geographic segments. It might be that you have an industry that uses your product for one purpose and another industry that uses it for another purpose, but they might be available across all geographic areas. And finally, you can segment by the size of the company that you're servicing. You may have different ways, for example, if you're a soft drink producer, of dealing with corner stores compared with the way you deal with supermarkets. So that's our who of customer segmentation. The last thing to consider in our who of customer segmentation is, of course, we're now operating in a global market, and there may be consumers that share specific segments across a global market, or there may be unique differences in consumers across markets. There may be industrial markets that share consumers, that share the same type of industry, and they have similar attitudes. They're looking for similar benefits, and therefore they have similar buyer behaviour. Second question you have to ask when you're formulating business level strategy is, what needs are you trying to satisfy for the customer? What are the related benefits and features? What's the basic need? And there are two forms of value that a customer can gain. They either gain value because it is low cost with acceptable features, or it's highly differentiated features with acceptable cost. Low cost, acceptable features, highly differentiated, acceptable cost. We're going to come back to those concepts in the second part of the lecture when we're talking about the specific business level strategies. Third thing we have to ask is, how do we serve those needs? What core competencies do we have that will satisfy those needs? What resources and capabilities can we combine? that give us a source of competitive advantage over our rivals. So, how will customer needs be satisfied? How do we use our core competencies to create value? And only the firms that have the ability to continuously improve and integrate and upgrade their competencies will be able to meet customer expectations across time, because customer expectations change. When we talked about how you created value last week, we didn't consider how you create value over time directly, but we did by talking about sustainable competitive advantage and temporary competitive advantage, business level strategy, and later in this course when we talk about competitive strategy, competitive dynamics will in fact deal with those issues. So that's our introduction to customers segmentation and also our introduction to business level strategy. What I want you to do before we move on to talk about the specifics of business level strategy, Objective 3, Objective 4, and Objective 5, I'd like you to watch the EPM Explainer video on business level strategy that gives an overview.